This Aqua finna do? They won't drink no more wine after God loads the clip and empties out his hydro flask. No Eve will be missed. Skip straight to Christmas. Chris and white bodies, and we can't leave their children. And we won't forget Adam or his family. Take out his hydrogen. Now oxygen's the only atoms we have left. Who's left? Yeah, Abel won't be. Legs won't move once Cain comes back for round two. But we keep it 100 so the Benjamins can stay, cause you can take your sin, but you can't take your money to the grave. Once God is done drowning them in his holy water, it'll be our turn to have baptisms that aren't poison. Our turn to swim out of our own free will, not survival. Our turn to have water that is not stirred with the tips of pencils. So white people, don't forget that God is gonna trouble these waters.
In truth.
Wow. Every uh, every time I watch it, it's like I watch it for the first time. What are your thoughts? Any thoughts on the film?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Robert Buster. I'm Reverend Teresa Streeter Buster's husband. I've been talking about this for years, and it all comes down to this. They don't owe us anything, they owe us everything. They took our culture, our lifestyle, and tried to deny it, but still we thrive. This is very powerful because I saw a lot of me in that. I'm from West Baltimore. I know what they did to the I-70 corridor, I-170, the road to nowhere. My church is right there, Allen AME. Okay? I lived on Franklin Street. I know what it's about. And I actually work for the government. So God told me, if the government comes to you and says, we want to help you, run the other way as fast as you can. It's not about the government. It's about us. We have to band together under the strength of God to do what we need to do. We don't need money. All we need is what we already had: property, a lifestyle, a family unit, things like that. We already had that. But they're taking that away from us. So that's what we need. We need to make a stand right now based on God to do what we need to do for us and not depend on the government for anything else.
I appreciate those comments. Anyone else? You don't have to come up and stand. You're welcome to, but I'll bring the mic to you. Any thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
Reparation, honestly, is new to me, and I thank you, Pastor, for introducing it to me. And I'll be honest, I don't understand it. I don't. But just looking at the film, pointing out in Greenmount area, the whole idea of the markets, that was powerful that I just never thought about. I really didn't. And also, when was this film done? When was this done? I'm a, I'm a PRP counselor, psychiatric rehabilitation, and my job is to provide resources. And it hit home for me, and first time I came in contact with the whole idea that if your house is raided, that the landlord will not pay for the door to be fixed. And I believe it was last year on Charles Street. I have a client. They raided her house, did not sell drugs, did not understand why. She called her landlord. landlord would not do anything. But as a PRP counselor who's supposed to provide resources, I was clueless as where to guide her to get her door fixed. And ultimately, she had to fix her own door, not being able to fix it, but just barricading it so nobody would get in. But being in a drug infested neighborhood, they raided her house, and the landlord did not come to fix it. But I did not know where to lead her at all. And so it was powerful for me.
And this is why we created this film, because we realized that, like, before we make any real steps towards any type of reparative or reparations in large, that there has to be an understanding and unity. So before we ever get to reparations, there has to be unity. But also, white folks in high places are starting to say the word reparations. And if we don't define it for ourselves, guess what? Someone else is going to define it for us and call it reparations, right? So this is why we got to have these discussions. And we all may not agree. You know, it's not just money, it's services, it's land, it's things that have been taken from us that allow for other communities, other ethnicities to build their communities off of our backs, not just slavery, but slavery in large part.
There's some things you can't buy, like culture. You know, when your culture is taken away from you, when your family unit is taken away from you, things like that. There's no dollar sign you can put on that. There's no dollar sign that can replace the time that families lost because of it just racism, just blatant racism, unjust jail, you know, that type of thing. The brother that was jailed for what, 40-some years. Things like that. No amount of money in the world can replace that. So, like you said, we have to start from the ground up and rebuild our culture. You know, I've talked to people on my job. We have I like to joke, the United Nations, because we have people from everywhere. Asians, Europeans, Jamaicans, Africans. And a lot of them say, we did not know you were like that. All we see is what the media shows us. Y'all are drug dealers, hoes, pimps, gangsters, whatever. I didn't realize there were guys like you. You know, I didn't realize there were people like you that are good people. We have to start at the bottom and build the foundation of our culture and our heritage back up.
And before I forget, however you receive word of this, there are going to be 7 to 8 other screenings. And I also talked to Pastor Turner about doing another one on a better date for the weather here. But, like, if you feel like this was something that your brother, your sister, your neighbor, or whoever needs to see, please go to baltimorereparations.org, and all you have to do is sign up, put your email in, and then you'll get the updates on the next screening. Next screening is Thursday night at a place called The Garage. We're only doing black institutions at this point. The plan is, once we finish with these screenings and discussions, we're going to make this public, and you can watch it in your home. You can do your own viewing in your living room. You can send it wherever. Nah, we're not selling it. We're giving it away because it's supposed to be a tool. It's supposed to generate discussion. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're always going to agree But honestly, reparations should be something we're talking about at within all of our homes. Just like you said, you said, I just heard about this for the first time and I'm still trying to understand it. That's part of what this is because, as I said before, some people think that it's whining and we're crying and we're begging for something. But as it was said in the film, in part, other ethnicities who have been marginalized by the government have received some sort of reparations. Jewish folks have received reparations for what happened with them. American, that was in the film, Japanese, American Indian, in part received some kind of reparations. As far as us, we haven't received anything. And when we talk about repairing our communities in this country and in this world, it includes some type of monetary fund, grant, but land. So much of our land was taken from us when originally there was about 20% black farmers at one point in time throughout the whole country. I think the percentage of that has dropped around 5% now. And 3%, okay, so we have someone who knows exactly what, that's why we gotta be in these rooms together. That's why we gotta be talking, right? And, I want people to, anybody else want to give their thoughts before I turn it over to Pastor, because he probably gonna bring it.
I didn't really want to speak because I just get so emotional just thinking of where we are as a people. My name is Quintaria Brunson, and I'm a financial strategist that focuses on teaching Black people how to build legacy. I sit and have sat on many boards from the National Association of Realtors. I'm a certified, I do mergers and acquisitions, and in spaces where I am the only one, conversations about money and currency and how money flows and how money works is so broad and just, like my 4-year-old, like it's just so available, and every department, every institution within the United States has intentionally put laws on the books to keep our community from learning and growing and all of that. So I didn't want to speak because I'm so used to being a businesswoman and so refined and all of that, but it just burns my soul how apparent and evident and legal. When you were talking earlier, you were talking about reparations and what, but it's legally owed. Like if you just look at the Constitution and like their own words, you can use them against them. But for me, I made an intentional decision because I saw how money flowed when I would speak at places where people didn't look like me. But as I started to change my marketing to say, I am intentionally seeking to educate and empower and edify my tribe that looks like me, I had to go different ways to find funding or use my own resources. But I intentionally said about 2 years ago, anything that I see that talks about reparations or betterment or unifying us, I am going to make sure that I'm there. And I've come here for 2 or 3 things. And I think this film was shown like during Kwanzaa, but I couldn't make it during that year. And when I saw it again, I was like, I have to keep that commitment to myself. But I want to say this, even if it isn't a lot here, for me, I'm a financial strategist, so my brain is always thinking of solutions. I'm very we definitely have to educate and let people know, but we need a strategy. It is owed, it is ours. So when it said pay up and get out the way, like I'm all for, give us 4 states in the, only 20% of the United States population lives west of the Mississippi. It's plenty of 40 acres that could be available to us. But because we have drank too much of the poison and we don't really feel worthy, we don't know. You don't know what you don't know. You know, I have lots of resources and information that I learned from people who don't look like me that were not difficult. It's simple concepts, but they were just foreign. Just like the lady there said, I've never heard of this. And it's, for me, we have just got to commit to sweep our own front porch, to bring our own families, and to connect to our neighbors and on and on. So anything that I can do to support, be it texting, you know, like 20 other people to come and see it or whatever, but I think that we must know that it is owed, that, and you are not, you know, like, I'm not bawling by any means, but I'm okay. And when I say reparations, people will be like, I can't believe, Quintaria, you want money from, I can't believe, you were featured, you were on Fox News, and you think, hey, we in church, so, but hey, you owe. You cannot, there's no way that this type of behavior, and I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna stop. That's why I'm like, Lord, don't take that microphone because but it's books written about it. Like I said, I sat on the Fair Housing Commission on the national and for the state of Maryland. They have the color of law. They will write and say in 400 pages and tell you exactly what they did wrong and how they, you know, like took wealth and all of that. You know, it's there. And then in the same breath say that they don't understand reparations and I'm gonna close in this. Being someone who is serious about wealth and financial solutions and all of that, there is, going back to just the generational wealth issues in Baltimore. I have a client that 2 years ago, she sold a home that she had lived in for 52 years, longer than I've been alive. 52 years. She bought it 52 years ago for $80,000, which it was slightly overpriced, but it was a white guy who was selling it and he did a land contract with them. So they knew they overpaid. She and her father paid it off in 10 years. Like, she sold it in 2022 for $80,000. Come on now. And it happens over, and well, it's crime in that neighborhood and but this is not, like a fluke or it is intentionally done and set there. And like I said, there are books, studies, and all types of information that shows exactly what they did, from the Department of Transportation to the Department of Education to the Department of Justice. They have all of this information, and we need to galvanize, be strategic, and know our worth and demand our money now, period.
Thank you for that. Pastor, you ready? Let me make another plug, BaltimoreReparations.org, for your email. I'll get the list and I'll email you. But honestly, truly, the easiest thing that you could do right now is look me up on Facebook and share the post. The post is already ready, right? The post with the schedule and the post with the trailer and the Eventbrite to where people, it's the easiest thing. So if you're on Facebook, JOHN, P as in Paul, COMER, like Homer Simpson, but it's Comer, COMER. If you find my page, it's open, you can look, you can scroll down, and there's already a list, there's already a post that's ready to be shared. It's the easiest thing ever. Otherwise, if you try to share all those three things yourself, it might not come out how you think it should. All right, Pastor Turner.
Thank you. Let's give Brother Comer a hand. We are very blessed to have him and the team. Miss Linda, I think I see her back there. We thank God for her as well. This issue is very, very important. I want to thank God for those of you who came out on this snowy Tuesday night. Give yourselves a hand, please, because you deserve to be commended.
yesterday I had the good pleasure of walking in this weather. I left here at 5 o'clock. Um, 5 o'clock, and I got to Carroll Park at 5:30, and it had not begun to snow at that moment. But as soon as I got out of the car, I had me a Burger King croissant sandwich, chicken and egg croissant. And as soon as I got out the car and I began to walk, it wasn't even 10, 15 minutes. It started to snow, and I do declare, it did not stop snowing, period, at all yesterday. My whole entire walk from Baltimore to the White House, it snowed the whole way. The whole way. And if you cannot tell, even by my phrase, I do declare, I'm not from Baltimore. And I'm not used to that kind of cold weather. And but I did it, and I've done it now 16 times. 16 times, and all for reparations. All for reparations. I have a book coming out in April that took me about 2 or 3 months, 2 or 3 years to write, because I wanted to do the right research in and for it. And just to put it mildly, I've dedicated my whole life, my whole adult life. I got friends that I knew that have known me since seminary. In my 20s, I've been advocating for reparations. I mean, as soon as in high school, I mean, as soon as you learn the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade, I mean, as soon as you learn the horrors of the Middle Passage, as soon as you learn that we were not just seen as chattel, we were seen as subhuman. You know, and that's the difference. That's the distinction of American slavery. Every other form of slavery in the world before here, slaves were seen as people. In America, slaves were seen as subhuman. They created science to undergird this mess. They theologically said we didn't have any souls. Right, that's the diabolicalness of American slavery. And so, yeah, from that moment on, talking with Brother Coleman and trying to get a date for this screening, and they had one, I think, was it last week at the Terra Cafe? Since we couldn't be first, I wanted to at least be in the first month that they were doing it, and they had last week already done, and this week I stated that I wanted it to be on Tuesday. We have Bible study on Tuesday night, and I thank God for those of you who come to that. But this Tuesday, January 16th is the actual day in 1865 where what you heard in the documentary reference, Sherman Field Order Number 15, was signed into act. It was signed into action January 16th, 1865. January 12th, General Sherman met with leaders of the black community in Savannah, Georgia. But it wasn't solely because they just wanted to help us, right? One thing people don't recognize about Sherman Field Order Number 15, it came after a massacre in December. Last month I did my walk in December, and I talked about the Ebenezer Creek Massacre. The Ebenezer Creek Massacre occurred because after General Sherman blazed a trail through Georgia, slaves were following them. Slaves were following them, and one general had slaves follow him, General Davis, not to be confused with Jefferson Davis for the Confederacy. There was another Union Jefferson Davis, and when the slaves were following them, they built bridges to go across a creek, Ebenezer Creek. When the Union Army made it across their creek, when they made it across the creek, they destroyed the bridge. and the free and the newly enslaved people, they drowned in the creek. And those that didn't drown, the Confederate Army killed. But it was solely because the Union Army destroyed the bridge. And so the black community in Georgia was up in arms. They said, how you gonna fight for the emancipation and the Civil War, but then leave us slaughtered? So General Stanton, Secretary of War Stanton, told General Sherman to meet with these black leaders in Georgia. And at that time, before Atlanta, Savannah, Georgia was the spot. The oldest black church in America is found in Savannah, Georgia. Savannah, Georgia was the Atlanta of that time. It was the place where all the black elite lived. And the black leaders in Savannah, Georgia was asked by General Sherman, what is it that you want? And they said, we don't want anything. You give us land that we've been working on and we can do for ourselves. You know, we've always been industrious. And so General Sherman said, we have just confiscated roughly 400,000 acres from the Confederacy, right? These Confederate generals who committed treason and American law, you commit treason, all your goods and land are confiscated, right? So he said, we just confiscated 400,000 acres off the coast of the Carolinas all the way down to Florida. We have enough land to give each one of you, the new families, 40 acres. And when we get there, we'll loan you a mule. I have, because that happened on this exact date in the year 1865, I call, this is something that hadn't been passed by any city or state, but I call January 16th Reparations Day. Because that's what it is. It is the day that this country promised us, signed into law, reparations, 40 acres and a mule. And if we let them forget, it's our fault. If you let the government forget what they promised your great-great-grandmama, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I love my family. And if you do something to me, that's one thing. But if you do something to my great-great-grandmama, and then take it back, we got some problems. And so I call this day Reparations Day. January 16th will forever be there. And don't take my word for it, I want to read to you Sherman Field Order number 15. It's about 6 paragraphs. I won't read all, but I'll read the main one. Field Order number 15, 1865. Special by William Tecumseh Sherman in the field, Savannah, Georgia. That's Savannah, Georgia was the field that this was written in. Guess what date? January 16, 1865. What is the field order? The islands from Charleston, South Carolina, the abandoned rice fields along the rivers for 30 miles back from the sea, and the country bordering the St. Johns River, you ever heard of that? To Florida, are reserved and set apart for the settlement of the Negroes, now made free by the acts of war and the Emancipation Proclamation of the President of the United States. With a description of the land. At Beaufort, Hilton Head, the place y'all be paying your money to go vacation, that was our reparations. You shouldn't have to pay for that. Hilton Head, Savannah, Fernandina, St. Augustine, and Jacksonville, Florida. The blacks may remain in their chosen or accustomed vocations, but on the islands and in the settlements hereafter to be established, no white person, whatever, unless military officers and soldiers detailed for duty, will be permitted to reside. So no white person living over, because the black folks in Savannah said, we ain't trying to live next to y'all. We really don't like y'all. And the sole and exclusive management of affairs will be left to the free people themselves, meaning we were a self-governed body, supposed to be, subject only to the United States military authority and the acts of Congress. By the laws of war and orders of the President of the United States, the Negro is free and must be dealt with as such. He cannot be subjugated to conscription or forced military service like they did to us in Vietnam, save by the written orders of the highest military authority of the War Department. Under such regulations that the President or Congress may prescribe, domestic residents, domestic residents, blacksmiths, carpenters, and other mechanics will be free to select their own work and residence, but the young and able-bodied Negroes must be encouraged to enlist as soldiers in the service of the United States to contribute their share toward maintaining their own freedom. This is still during the Civil War, and securing the rights as citizens of the United States. Negroes so enlisted will be organized into companies, battalions, and regiments under the orders of the United States military authorities and will be paid, fed, and clothed according to the law. But the balances of enlistment may, with the consent of the recruit, go to assist his family and settlement in procuring agricultural implements, seed, tools, boots, clothing, and other necessary articles for their livelihood. Whenever 3 respectable Negroes, heads of family, shall desire to settle on land and shall have selected for that purpose an island or locality clearly defined within the limits above designated, the inspector of settlements and plantations will himself or by such subordinate officer as he may appoint give them a license to settle such island or district and afford them such assistance as he can to enable them to establish a peaceable agricultural settlement. It goes on, and then goes down to we should get 40 acres tillable ground, and when it borders on some water channel and not more than 800 feet waterfront in possession of which lands. This was beachfront property that we had. Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head, Beaufort, Savannah, Jacksonville, all of this was supposed to be given to your ancestors. Places where you got timeshares now, right? Imagine, this, I'm not talking about 50 years ago. I'm not talking about your mama's house that you inherited and you and your siblings fought over, probably still not talking to your folks about. But imagine if your great-grandmama had some land. Imagine if your great-great-grandmama had, 40 acres, and then they marry somebody else with 40 acres. What does that give you? 80 acres, right? And then some folks may have only one child, so they're getting all 80 acres from both of their parents. And this is your ancestry. And the government signed off on it. And Abraham Lincoln was shot. You saw the documentary. Andrew Johnson comes in and says, we're not giving y'all anything. But you know what? I don't expect the white man who came from the South to uphold that. What I'm upset about, I'm still upset about that. He's wrong for that. He's wrong as sin for that. But what I'm troubled by is the fact that not one black leader since has called on the government, not for anything new, but to give us what you promised. What they did, what the white folks did, they gave the land back to the Confederate generals, the folks who committed treason, the folks who killed over 700,000 American soldiers. So instead of giving it to people who served and built this country and nursed their babies and cooked their food, instead of giving it to them, they would rather give it to folk who killed their sons and daughters. Think about that. The Confederate soldiers killed the sons and daughters of the Union. But instead of giving the land to us, who served both North and South, fed both North and South, they took it from us and gave it back to the people that killed them and committed treason. That shows you how much hatred this country has for black people. But even not sadder, but another sad part about it is not one of us, not one of our elected officials, not even one of you saw on that screen, has come out in support of reparations. Not one. They are afraid to say the word. they're afraid to say the word. We had a black president. Have you heard him say the word? I thank God I voted for him twice. Guess we got a black governor. I voted for him too. Has he said the word? We got a black mayor. I like him too. Has he said the word? And we got to stop whispering and being quiet about at least say the word. Is it hard to say? You know, let's just say the word. Can you say the word reparations? It ain't gonna hurt you to say it, you know, but it shows you how fearful, they're not even over our state, our communities even more. We're not in the position. And we, even in their absence, even when we have the pen, we're too afraid to say the word. Like, what can they do to us they ain't already done? Huh? So yeah, I fight, I walk, I march, I write. I've given my life to this and I will continue to do so. But we have to remind ourselves, we still have the power. This is an election year. This is May. We got an election coming up, May 2024. I don't know what your issues are that you're gonna decide on. My number 1, 2, 3, and 4 is reparations. Period. Everything else you mentioned, from public safety to education, to economic development, all goes back to reparations. Period. All of those are branches from the tree. And guess what? They knew it back in 1865. That's why General Stanton, General Sherman was not talking about trying to start any nonprofit for black folk. They weren't talking about trying to start any scholarship programs for black people. They said, give them some land. Make them autonomous. Give them economic independence. Repair the harm you've done. They can start their own scholarships. They can start their own colleges. You know, you can keep all your loans and small business grant programs. You can have all of that. That's fine for later, but first things first, give us what you owe. Yeah, how you expect? It's like we asking for tips, and they haven't paid for the meal yet. Huh? You hear me? How you go work with Ruth Chris, the Fogo de Chao, and you say you the owner of the restaurant, and instead of paying for the meal, they want to just give you a tip. Would you be satisfied with that? No. Pay me what you owe. We can talk about the tips later. We'll still take the tips, by the way. We'll still take the tips. But at first, pay us what you owe. And we've been arguing about tips. And even before we could argue about tips, we were just trying to get rights to allow us to even come in the restaurant in the first place. That's all emancipation was. That wasn't a gift for us. That's all the voting rights was. That wasn't a gift for us. That's all fair housing was. That wasn't a gift for us. That was to actually help us be treated as equal citizens. That was not reparations. Affirmative action is not reparations. In fact, that's not even just for black people anyway, because the largest beneficiary of affirmative action are white women. So we the only community that's satisfied with tips. Meanwhile, Japanese Americans got what they were owed. Indigenous Americans got what they owed. Now, it's still not enough. I'll be the first to tell you, but they got something. When I was walking to D.C. yesterday, I met a Jewish brother who saw my wreath, saw the sign, and he was like, man, I'm just so impressed and inspired by what you're doing. He offered me some food, chocolate chip cookies, and some pasta. Asked me if I had a place to stay tonight. I said, no, I'm going back to Baltimore. He said, I'm just so inspired. A perfect stranger. in D.C. And he said, because my grandmother got reparations for being a Holocaust survivor, right? It ain't never enough, but it's something, you know? But we ain't never got something. He said, so I appreciate what you do. He said, and you do this every month? I said, yes, every month. And he said, you walk this same path? I said, yep. He said, well, I'm going to try to see you again. I said, well, that'd be a blessing. And he said, you don't have many people with you. Because, see, to them, it's like, why more black people not, I mean, they can say at a Ravens football game in line, in the rain, to pay money to a white owner that ain't gonna never give you anything. Pay $20 for some hot dogs and nachos. But they won't walk a couple of miles? It's laughable. People think that we don't care about our own issues. The only time we care about issues is when white people make them popular. We have to show them, and that's one of the things I got from my mentor, Jesse Jackson, who learned from Dr. King. He really admires the word. He said, Turner, you have to keep doing this because we have to show America what is important to us. And if we don't show America what's important to us, then they will never know. And so by doing this walk, by watching this documentary, by supporting it, you are showing America what's important to us. They put in your mind what they want to be important to you through commercials and advertisements. That's all they are. Those commercials are meant to make you want something you don't need. I just said something. Those commercials are meant to make you want something you don't need. You don't need a commercial to tell you you need water. No, you need that. You know that. Commercials are meant to influence you to want something that you don't even need. And forget to actually go after the things that you deserve. Reparations is one of those. So you're not going to see a commercial about that because that doesn't help these corporations in their bottom line. So I thank God for Brother Coleman. I thank God for Sister Linda. I thank God for those of you who come out here tonight. Reparations comes from the root word repair. You have to know that it's already deserving. And it's not whether or not you need it. It's not about what you need. It's about what you deserve. You know, black folk, we know how to take lemons and make lemonade. Don't let people shame you into thinking, well, because the very fact you asking for it show you need it. No, don't count my money. We know how to take intestines and make chitlins. You know, we know how to take the feet of a pig and call it pig feet, and it tastes delicious. We know how to take the worst and make it to be the best. So it ain't about what we need. It's about, as citizens, what we rightfully deserve. And it's about the healing of a nation. America will never be whole. America will never be whole until she is repaired. And America will never be repaired until we are repaired. Until we are repaired. And so I can't thank you all enough. I don't know if there's any closing things I need to do. I say, yeah, go ahead, come on. I'm done. I'm Robert Turner, pastor in Empowerment Temple. We worship every Sunday here at 10 o'clock, Bible study next Tuesday at 6:30, and we're going to schedule a time to do this again. I was blessed, abundantly blessed by the documentary, and would love to do it again when the weather agrees. But this is important. The people who came out tonight, you are important. You know why? Because you showed your dedication. You showed your dedication. There's some people that can only come out when everything is convenient. But you are people who have conviction. And I would ride or die with you any day of the week. God bless y'all. God bless y'all. Give Brother Coleman a hand as he comes.
Now, that was one of the greatest words on reparations that I've sat and listened to. I just want to say this. This is not something that we just suddenly came up with here in Baltimore. It's people around the country in different cities talking about this, having these discussions. There's also like political groups at this point in time where there are mayors from black cities like Baltimore, like Detroit, like St. Louis, that have spoken the word reparations and said that they're willing to move forward and find a way to make reparations happen in their city. You know, like Pastor said, like Brandon Scott, I like him, but reparations has not come out, you know, of his mouth. And he also has not joined, it's called MORE, Mayors of something, M-O-R-E, right? And I'm in contact with a few folks from Detroit and this Asheville, North Carolina. The mayors could have all bought into, you know, making that happen. So, you know, like Pastor was saying, we need to say the word reparations, at least say the word reparations. I promise you, if you start saying it, your ancestors will start strengthening you from that point on. I promise you. I promise you. We are not whining. We are not begging. We are asking what we are demanding for what we legally deserve. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet. But that's why we got to have these conversations. That's why folks like yourself and Pastor Turner and yourself have to be in the room. Economists, everyday people, community organizers, no one, anyone with melanin in their skin that has lived in this country experiencing what we experiencing are deserving of reparations. And I'll stop there. But, you know, thank you for coming out. BaltimoreReparations.org, sign up. Again, please share this. It's important that we, you know, we share this and more people come. And don't look at this as if this was a failed event, because it was powerful, because I could feel it, right? It was powerful, right? Tamako, Sister Tamako. And she was in the film, too.
Thank you. Peace and blessings. Every time I see the film, it just rocks me. But one of the things I wanted to mention, people say, how come we have not gotten reparations? And we name the other groups, and one of the reasons is that we haven't asked for it. It's just so simple. We haven't put a number. And so I know in the field that I work in with for the folks, criminal justice, there's a book written by Dr. Tasley McCabe, and it's called Stolen Wealth, Hidden Power, Reparations for Mass Incarceration. And she says just for 4 decades, criminal justice, that the U.S. owes $7.16 trillion to people of African descent. Now, that's just criminal justice. That's just only 4 decades, $7.16 trillion. She's saying reparations is owed. So it's important that we do not say things like, well, no amount of money will cover it. No, you owe. Our ancestors worked 200 years. That's like working for a corporation 50 years and you don't get paid. You've got to get compensated for our work. And the U.S. will compensate us for the work that our ancestors have done. So it's important that we put a number to it, that yes, it will not be replaced, but it will be repaired through economic empowerment, through reparations. And that is non-negotiable. And we got to ask for it, and we got to say it. Because if you don't, it will not be given to us. But on the other end, we also have our responsibility to be our own reparations to one another and to our own communities. And we will not let this go. It will be paid to our ancestors. To not ask for it is to dismiss them and the blood they shed and the lynches that occurred on this planet, on this ground. We will not get no passes. The U.S. gets no passes. Period. We will never let them forget what has been done to us. Never, ever. Thank you.
Any final comments from folks out there? Pastor Turner. Pastor Turner. Thank you for coming. Indeed, not canceling. Moving forward. Indeed, Sister Tamako, indeed. So now you have something to agree upon. Huh? You came in saying that I just heard about it, I didn't know. There we go. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing this. And Sister Tamako is a mentor of mine. And if she don't call me and say peace and blessings, I pick up the phone and say peace and blessings. Like I called her last week. I was like, you ain't called me in a week. I don't know what's going on. Peace and blessings. But I'll end that right here. Everyone drive safe tonight. Please share peace and blessings. There's some food in the back, or where?
If you all go out and go to your right, there's some light refreshments for you as you try to go home. We want to close with a word of prayer for those who, especially watching on live. God, we thank you. God, we praise you for tonight. We ask that you bless us all to make it home safely. We praise your blessed name that you bless this food that we are about to partake in and make it nourishing and strengthen our bodies, strengthen our hearts and our minds. We seek to carry this word, this truth of reparations across the world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.